Hi, and welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm Tom Jones with AWS, and we're here at the last day of reInvent. I'm joined by Sven from FICO. Welcome, Sven.
Hi, thanks.
So tell us, what does FICO do?
So FICO is doing software to meet regulatory compliance goals or requirements.
So in what kind of regulatory compliance are we talking about?
For example, know your customer software and anti-money laundering software. And this is what this workflow is about.
Okay, so let's just jump into it. What do we got here?
So currently in the financial sector, the customers is uploading their transactions and customers that they get over the day with a file into our S3 bucket. From there, we have configured an S3 event that will be sent to an SQS queue. So this is basically the job queue telling us that the customer has uploaded new files that need to be processed.
Okay. And so that you're going to have things that will queue up in the queue, and what happens after that?
So we check this queue based on CloudWatch events that are invoking a Lambda function. And the Lambda function is invoked every 5 minutes, and it will check the queue for new jobs. So it will then check if there's already a job running for this specific customer that has uploaded the file. And if not, it will make sure to invoke a step function to monitor and start the workflow for processing this new input file.
Okay. And so if a customer is uploading files, it sits in the queue for 5 minutes, and then it kicks off a step function. What happens, or why are you using step functions at this point?
So we are using step functions to make sure of the workflow management and to be able to use the functionality of invoking lambdas and invoking tasks, as well as the integrated features for waiting and retries.
Okay. And so what happens after it goes into the step function?
So the step function is basically invoking a Lambda function that we utilize as an intermediate step to invoke an EC2 instances. And this instance will be used to do the batch processing for the uploaded customer file.
Okay. And are you using Windows instances or Linux instances? What are you running here?
So currently this is a Windows Server 2016 instance that is made from a plain vanilla AWS AMI. And yeah.
And so you're customizing this instance, I take it, to run your software?
Yeah, so we run the immutable approach for running instances in our environment. This basically means that we need to initialize this instance from scratch once it's booted. And we do that by downloading configuration from S3 and utilizing user data to bring the instance up and to initialize it.
So why are you going through that process of customize AMI every time for every tenant? What's driving that? Why don't you just create an AMI that you can use across the board?
So typically this workload is pretty compute intensive, right? So it requires a lot of compute resources. And for on-premise customers, they have to provision these resources for the peak load, right? And what we are doing in the cloud is we are utilizing this workflow and on-demand instances to cover this peak, right?
Okay. So
that's the goal of having a on-demand EC2 batch processing instance.
Okay. And I suspect there's some type, this business is heavily regulated and has lots of different rules and requirements. I suspect for each tenant or maybe each country, you have different requirements that you have to meet.
Yeah, this is true. So our customers are regulated within their jurisdiction. So there are different time zones, there are different laws that have to be enforced, and the customer always needs to meet these regulatory compliance goals.
Okay.
And therefore, it is important for them that their data is encrypted and that it's staying in the same locality, right? So there's a specific region or a specific location where this data needs to stay.
Great. And so you're getting some elasticity and flexibility by invoking these instances when you need them and letting them go when you don't. as well as the opportunity to fully customize that installation for that specific tenant's requirements based on, like you were saying, maybe their geography or their specific local laws.
Exactly.
Cool. So what happens on this instance? You're running your software. What happens?
Yeah, so
the data?
when the instance is started via the Lambda function, it will basically download all its dependencies from S3, and it will also get its task from the step function.
Okay.
Then it's installing the product, using the user data, and running the batch processing.
Got it.
The results of the batch processing will be stored into the database and will later be available in the front end in the case management for user interaction.
Cool. So then that gives you the ability to do reporting and alerting and things like that if you detect some anomaly.
And the cool thing is this instance is shut down and you only pay the some hours that we use it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, we've had an amazing week here in Las Vegas. Have you run across anything that could help you even streamline this architecture?
Oh yeah. We ran into the AWS batch processing stuff and the new feature that allows us to use step function to directly invoke AWS batch. So this will allow us to substitute this Lambda function in the EC2 instance with AWS batch. So that's what we are looking forward.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing your architecture with us here. This is some interesting use of step functions and for a very good cause. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for watching. This is my architecture.